Hello, everybody. It's Laura Victoria Ward, Inner Outer Space Harmony today. And I am in a Zoom room with other people, which if you would like to ever join that Zoom room, feel free to reach out to me. And so we're going to do check-ins throughout this. And I've spotlighted myself, so you're not going to see any of the other people, but you'll probably hear them talking. Hello, Teresa. And I'm going to start just with a quick check-in. So, but the question is, how are you in your body right now? So nothing about the outer world, but only the inner world. What's happening in your body right now is the question. If you want to answer, feel free to unmute and just respond.
I feel anticipatory in my heart.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, I feel rather peaceful. I had a lot of neck pain over the last days, but I try to go inwards and try to make peace with whatever. Yeah, I think I'm very sad and I'm trying to just let it be. So and that works also more peacefully in my body.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Peen. I think there's a lot of grief happening right now in the general collective. How about you, Teresa? How are you in your body today?
I feel like I got myself back. Like my kid goes to school now, and I mean, she went to school a year ago, but it feels like it's been 10 years, and I'm coming back to my body. It's almost like childbirth again.
Well, hopefully not as painful as childbirth, but that's an awesome analogy. Hello, Quentin, welcome. We're just asking how everybody is in their body today. So feel free to respond to that if you want to. Where are you in your body right now? And everyone in TV land, how are you in your body right now?
My brain kind of sucks, but the rest of my body feels pretty decent, less achy than I was before. But of course, my mind and my brain has a lot of rumination going on about the future. So there's 50% things suck, and the rest of it is, all right, I can work with this. Yep.
Yeah, I hear you. So yeah, so a little bit of grief, a lot of uncertainty, and some anticipation and some getting life back. So I want to play with a few different things. I want to play with a few different breaths right at the beginning in the sort of more meditative way to come inside. I just need to get a tissue. I tend to have a nose that runs all the time, which apparently is a thing. So the first thing I want to do is this breath that we've been working on, and it's called the Luna breath. And it's as if you are just hearing the sound of your own breathing inside your head. So it's almost like a ha with no ha. So just, or a distilled ujjayi breath. If you're familiar with that from yoga, think of a homeopathic version of ujjayi. And we're only playing the breath on the exhale. So on the inhale, what we're going to do is what I call the expansion breath. And you're just going to imagine everything getting bigger, from like you're a ball, and from the center to the edges, just opening up with this expansion breath growing. And then on the exhale, you're going to come into this really focused, maybe you feel it in your throat, maybe your chest, maybe midline, Luna breath, which is almost like listening to a seashell. The sound, if you were in outer space, maybe the sounds that you would hear, or I imagine you would hear. So let's do that for a couple of minutes and just focusing. You can do this with eyes open or closed, seated in any kind of comfortable way. Inhaling on that growing expansion, and then exhaling with the Luna breath, very distilled, almost like a very tiny clamp in the throat, but tiny, 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 that allows you to come into focus and then expand out. When I do that expansion breath, I often get chills. I can feel it going out to my skin and my whole body. So it's almost like you're just a bubble going out to the outer edge and then coming back into the center of the bubble with the Luna. And the Luna will take as long as it takes. You don't need to try and make it last forever, but often it will be slower than the inhale. So let's just do this for a couple of minutes. And I'm going to open my eyes every once in a while in case I have to let anyone into the room. So eyes open or closed. And then letting us come back into the group, just taking note of where you are right now. Yeah, I'm trying to decide for me if that expansion is like, if I feel like that as a nervous system breath, because I'm coming all the way out to the edges and then coming back in, or if it's like a cellular breathing breath. I don't know. I'm not sure where that lands for me, but I'm thinking it's nervous system to a degree because it's coming out to that edge, then coming back in, the natural expansion and contraction. But I want to play with one more breath. So that Luna breath is a continuum breath, and the expansion breath is just a breath that I've played with myself, that I haven't seen anyone else teach that breath as is, but I've been just finding that awareness. In Laban, we talk a lot about growing and shrinking with the breath. So what does it really feel like to let that expansion like go out way beyond even your own body, and then let it come back into an infinite space? I want to play with this other breath, which is also a continuum breath, and it's called the Jacques breath. And it's like a zh. And with most of the continuum breaths that you're playing with difference, you're always seeking novelty. So you're moving towards the unfamiliar as much as possible instead of getting set in a pattern. So where continuum really diverges from most other systems that I've learned, it's always about novelty, newness, and being alive in that specific moment. And so it's sort of allowing your body, as you follow these different patterns, to break up sort of some of the holding patterns or some of the familial patterns or the cultural patterns or the patterns of you being you, whatever that personality thing is. And so Emily Conrad talks about 3 anatomies, and the one is the primordial anatomy, like all of us in the soup, as creatures that evolved from water. Another one is the cultural anatomy, and that is how are we here together and in this world. And then there's the cosmic anatomy, which is like out there as a part of the universe. And I feel like when we play with these breaths, we're playing with those different anatomies and also giving ourselves the freedom to explore being different than what we are, right? And I think that the more advanced we get in practices, the more we've learned a million different ways of being ourselves, the more interesting it is to start to veer it off. And also with the Laban work, what I have found is that by exploring spaces that you don't usually go into, you start to expand your capacity for making choices, or exploring movement patterns. Like, I'm usually not very light and I don't slow down very much, but when I do, what happens then? So when we start to give ourselves more options and play with this stuff, we have more choice in how we exist in the world, which I think is super helpful. So I want to play with this Jacques breath. And I suggest that you put your fingers somewhere on your face where you can really feel your bones. So the idea with the Jacques that I've heard from studying Continuum is that they tend to be more of a dense vibrational sound that relates to bone. So what I'd like to try and do is just play. You can even move your hands over your face, whatever you want, or just leave them in one space to play with it for a while. But we're going to go with the z, 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 z. And you just keep moving the sound around. If you feel like you get exhausted, just take resting breaths and just stay in the sensation of breathing. But let's do it for like maybe 4 or 5 rounds. And you breathe and inhale and exhale whenever you need to, take resting breaths whenever you need to, but let's just play with it. And you're going to let your face free up so you can make faces and let it all happen. And you're not locked into being you. Letting that come to a rest. And just taking a second, maybe closed eyes, to really tune into the sort of ripples of what that did to your system. And as we're in that sort of really quiet internal place, I just want to invite you to, as if your head is like a marble ball on one of those water things where the head keeps turning, you know, there's like, it's like a bowl with water and then there's like a stone inside, and the stone is going to continue moving because of this holding. Have you seen that? There's one of those in Vancouver on the seawall walk. I'm sure if you haven't seen one, I apologize for using that metaphor, but imagining that, and just so it's almost like the axis and atlas where your head is connecting onto your spine has some freedom. And we're just going to take the tiniest bit of movement from side to side. So just the tiniest bit of horizontal movement. And you want to think of maybe even moving so small that you can almost not feel that you're moving. So it's such tiny, tiny movement. And as you're in that space, the side to side, relax your jaw and just see what awareness comes online for you. And if you have the desire to go bigger or smaller or change your movement in any way, go for it. If your desire is different than what I'm offering, that's okay. The beauty of Zoom is that if you're muted, it's not that disruptive. You can do what you want. Yeah, so let's just see what's happening in our faces now as you've got that movement, just tuning into jaw, eyes, ears, the weight of the head. And then let's just take a little up, down. Tiny again. It can be so small a nod that it's not even happening. I feel like tuning in, coming into the inner, when I really just hone into making it so small, it's easy for me to bring my focus in. Good. And then letting that release and just seeing what's coming online, what you're noticing. And because we've been so up here in our heads, I want to take it down to our feet. So if it's possible to touch your feet, like if you can put them up on something and grab, or if you can lean over and touch them, or do anything so that you can touch your feet, great. If touching the feet is uncomfortable and not going to happen, just think into your feet. Imagine that you're touching your feet. So it could be like, I could be sitting like this and touching my feet, and I can touch the tops, the bottoms, but touch your feet and see if you can feel into the bones of your feet. And we're going to do the Jacques one more time with the touching of the feet. So touching your feet in any way that feels comfortable, or not touching your feet and imagining you're touching your feet. And one more round of the Jacques breath. And from there, you can let go of your feet if that's comfortable, or keep holding on. And just let's invite some micro movement into the spine. So how we had our little heads up and down, side, side, just allow your spine, and it could be macro movement. You could go huge or you can go small, whatever feels right to you, but inviting the idea of the sort of fluidity of the spine. Now that we've had the zhuzh, inviting this fluidity into the whole. Let's go all the way down to the, let's even go deeper into sort of the whole base of your tail, into the bones of the pelvis, and maybe the bones of the ribs and the cranium. So that Jacques breath is very bone related. So sensing into your bones, inviting in micro movement, and imagining the aliveness of your bone. So that bone has that marrow inside, which is very slow moving liquid, like very dense liquid, very dense fluid, but just waking up into that idea of bones of the spine, bones of the pelvis, bones of the ribs, bones of the cranium, and inviting micro movement into that. Inviting in delicious exploration. So whatever feels good, whatever feels interesting, whatever feels nourishing. And again, offering the possibility of novelty. Slow it down, speed it up, go into a slightly different direction. Maybe even imagining slowly pouring yourself around. Or thinking of water trickling in between rocks. And then I'm going to throw in some Laban words into this, and that's going to be advancing and retreating. Letting your body, in whatever way, whatever body part is interested in advancing, let whatever wants to advance, advance, and whatever wants to retreat, retreat. Other words would be moving forward and backward. Yeah, and it could be, we could be going bigger with this. You can also look on screen and see what other people are doing if there's a desire, but finding that advancing and retreating forward, backward movement. Like we did our horizontal side, side, we did our up, down with the nod. Now letting it some movement into the future, into the past, and feeling what it's like to be in that middle space between the future and the past. And letting yourself be alive in movement in that space. It may be tiny movement. And I feel a lot of side coming in. So feel free to add other things. Like if your body, if we're moving into deliciousness and desire in your body, then you can move in any way that feels good. Adding anything to this very three-dimensional body that you are existing as. This is the process of you. And it's also the process of us, right? We're all here in this moment together, creating reality together. So I want to invite one more sort of play into this, and that is the idea of crossing things. So like we could cross our arms, we could cross our legs, we can also cross in the back. So the idea is crossing in front, narrowing in, widening and wide opening up, and then maybe crossing and back again, narrowing, feeling what those feelings like. Seated with my hands behind my back, it feels very much like I've got handcuffs on. And have I ever had that happen? I think it has actually happened to me once in my life that I've been handcuffed. Trying not to remember that, but it could be a very uncomfortable feeling. If I cross in the front, how do I play that? If I cross behind my head, how does that play? If I cross my legs in front, or even I could come to standing and play with crossing behind. And then I feel like I'm like a speed skater. So just tuning into the different things and the possibilities of what it feels like to cross forward, maybe open really wide, cross back, just feeling what feels like what is in your reality of movement and understanding movement and feeling movement. What is there? Where are the safe, comfy places, and where are the stretches? You can start to throw in some of that real spiraling, twisting into the back space. I know that's one of the rarely visited places. Does it feel better if you cross your legs in the back? Just playing with that, what's possible. And I also am having that like little kid, oh my God, I have to go pee thing. Not that I do, but just that thing, you see little kids in that position and suddenly I'm like, wow, I know that sort of narrowing, holding it in. Just, yeah, what associations are coming in? And then let's get a little more planar. So starting to play as if you're in, like, as if you are in a piece of paper standing up, a vertical plane. How does that feel? Do you want to cross to get to any of those places? I'm starting to feel like Nijinsky, some kind of like early 1900s movement patterns. Not movement patterns, I've just seen pictures of him like that. And then let's take it out of the vertical into the horizontal plane. So starting to, as if you're in a big table, you're hitting those corners, crossing some of them. Yeah. How are those crossed forward positions? If we cross both in front or we cross both behind, letting yourself move through that. And then let's shift into the sagittal, where we're reaching forward high, forward low. And in sagittal, with the idea of sagittal, we aren't actually crossing our body. So it's like this, or like this. Once I cross, it's no longer purely sagittal. So just thinking of that, your wheel plane, letting it wheel around, no crossing and opening here. You're just walking the tightrope or staying between two walls, rolling the wheel. Feeling what that all is. Good, now let's bring it in. There's a whole lot of stuff there. We've lost, Walter said he was gonna have to go outside, and same with Cassie. It is a beautiful day today. So what are you noticing? Feel free to unmute. anything from the growing and shrinking to the zh, to the little spinal movement to the bigger movement.
Well, it was a lot, but when we were moving with the skull, the minimal movements, I could also feel it in my tailbone. That's just where my problem was in my neck. So for me, it was very to think of water and make it. Yeah, was delicious feeling, or a good feeling. And I was thinking about the crossing movement. I always feel a bit like trapped, but I also know that the organs, it's very good for organs to just do this crossing or an opening. So I was trying to take the negativity of it for myself. And so yeah, I was playing with those kind of things.
Yeah, thanks. What about you guys, Quentin, Abby, Teresa?
I'm still moving.
Well, how are you moving?
I'm like a windmill right now. A opposing arm windmill.
Yes.
In the breaths, I really felt like I got to go visit everyone. Like, I mean, I've done a lot of weird breathing shit with people in the room where we're supposed to be in a group consciousness. But today it felt like I went and visited Pam and visited Laura and visited Quentin, visited Abby, and like got to, with those, when I was feeling into my bones, like I got to kind of drop into everyone's house. It was like astral travel. It was like, I hear about this, people getting high off breath, but I had never done it before.
Interesting. I do want to say something about that. Yeah, I feel like with the continuum work, and the fact that you're with the continuum breath work and sort of the field, the energetic field, for want of a better term, or the collective unconscious working together in that field, it's a potent space. And I've had classes where people who've had recovering addicts have been like, wow, that was the first time I felt as high as I used to feel when I was taking drugs. Like, it's like a natural thing. So there are many access points into, these altered states. And the breath obviously is a huge one. And, so much, it's kind of amazing to me how we've set in how we are human. Like, there's so many different directions it could have gone being human. And in different cultures, there's slight differences, but basically we all, eat, drink, do things. And how much sound and sounding in a group, which could be singing in a choir, but that's a really specific way. Like, how do we decide how we do this together? And why aren't we just all going like, it's such a state changer instantly. And once you learn to drop into those fields, it's like, you're immediately going into parasympathetic. Even like if I'm taking Continuum with Mary Abrams at Moving Body Resources in the City, the second she starts to make a sound, my body has the somatic response, like Pavlov's dog, of like, I'm in. I've dived in. So there is a huge connected factor with that. Quentin, anything?
It's a mix. It's a mix. I'm studying some of the stuff that Paul Linden does. So I'm really kind of locked in on mixing that with other things. And I forgot, it just came up sometime when we were doing it. The thing that worked best for me was that no one exercise seems super powerful, but it's continuing to build. And the other thing is that the spine feels good. The spine itself feels kind of cool and warm at the same time. The upper part of the spine feels cool. The lower part of the spine feels warm. I like the cool a little bit better, but the warmness feels alive. It's not a lot of achiness in the back. I like the buzzing thing, the Jacques breath in the face, and the feet too. Yeah, and I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, how come not the fascia and just the bones?
Well, we could say the fascia, it's doing everything, right? It's
Okay.
just that, and these ideas are not like set in stone. It's not like this is how it is always. It's like these are explorations. And it has been found that the resonance with bone, for some reason, I honestly don't know why. Like Emily Conrad did a ton of exploring with a bunch of other people. And, people came to like, it feels kind of like this. That's my imagination of what it is. But I would say that is going to be also fascia, right? It's just going to be different levels of it.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely like the micro movement. I think the micro movement had some positive effect on my my spine, my neck. Yeah,
I
my
feel
spine feels good.
Yeah. I feel like the micro movement is a key for spinal health. And it's something that we haven't spent much time with
Oh.
as a culture. So because suddenly we have all these different capacities. And I think sometimes we think of the spine as a column, and it's such a bad metaphor for our spines because our spines are alive and there's so many capacities for movement in our spine. So using the column metaphor is like, oh, it's a pillar. Like a lot of our metaphors in our language that we use for body are very mechanical, and our bodies are these organic living processes, right? Like it is, I know that like there's the idea of like, okay, what's your arm? Is it this thing over here? Or is it like heat? Is it blood? Is it movement? Is it this extension of the branch of your lung? There's different ways of being with body where we objectify it or participate with it. And it's this dynamic process, or it is a constant. Well, that's what they say. Like, I think the more advanced you get with it, it's just an inquiry. Every time is slightly different. It's always a new question. It's always a new exploration. So that's like levels of consciousness and movement patterning and in sort of somatics. Like if people are seeking for someone to teach them the truth, this is not the path, right? Because nobody can teach you the truth of you except for you. It's only an exploration that you can find and lead towards, which isn't to say that there aren't many truths out there which are fun to explore, but like I think it's just a funny thing. Like I think like many somatics practices initially, and also like martial arts practices initially, shoot themselves in the foot by being, this is the only one, and this is how it is, and there is no other one. And that's like, well, maybe. But if we start to study them all, they all have things that are related, and it's all arising now in this moment. We're in this thing in our body right now. So I feel like it's such a funny thing to think about, like, and what people lean into. Let's move some more. Let's get standing and moving in a bigger way. So what I want to play with, I really wanted to play with the planes and the idea of making movement patterns that are our own. So like I'm going to pick a point. So let's just review the planes really quick. We'll go with vertical plane. We have high right, high left, low right, low left, high right, high left, low right, low left. And if we were in a doorway, I could be talking about the corners, high right, high left, low right, low left. There's my vertical plane. If I was in a table, we'll go to horizontal, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. So this is a plane, two-dimensional, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. And it's not actually two-dimensional, it's just the language of Laban that makes it two-dimensional. Right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. So in my horizontal plane, there is no up down. In my vertical plane, there is no forward backward. In my sagittal plane, there's no side side. So sagittal plane, I have forward high, forward low, backward low, backward high, forward high. It's 2D, not 3D, forward low, just in Laban language. Obviously, my body is three-dimensional. All movement is three-dimensional. But using the language of Laban, we're differentiating the movement in space in these ways. Switch it to your other side. Forward low, forward high, backward high, backward low, forward low, forward high, backward high, backward low. We could travel through the center. So with these ones, we're using both sides of our bodies, but we could just use one side. Like I could go high right, high left, low right, low left. Sorry, said that backwards because I'm doing the opposite. So high right, high left, low right. I could do it the other side. High, high right, high left, low right, right? So if I'm moving, if we're talking Laban space, and this is just theory, and the point of the theory is that so we have more like clarity of what's going on, but it doesn't even matter if somebody's not going to use the theory. Just getting your body doing different things is helpful. But if we were going to do the horizontal plane with just one hand, we'd go left forward middle, right forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. So it's just one hand cycling between those 4 points. And the way that we did the sagittal, we did cycle, but if we could go forward low and come through the middle to backward high, forward low to backward high, trying it on the other side, forward low to backward high, forward low to backward high, or forward high to backward low, forward high to backward low. And you'll probably find that backward low is one of those spots that's kind of awkward. Try it with the other hand, forward high to backward low. It's like, how do you get back there? I could stick out my butt and reach like this, although normally I would do a hinge to get back there. So what I want to play with is jumping from plane to plane. Like if we were going to do the Laban scale, it would go vertical to sagittal to horizontal to another vertical point to another sagittal point to another horizontal point. But what I want to play with is that you're going to make up 3 points, one in each plane, so that with one part of your body. So like it could be my right hand, which is actually this one, but I'll pretend it's this one. My right hand is going to go forward low to high right to back high, forward low to high right to back high. So that is a 3-point scale that I've made. So what I want you to do is just figure out 3 points that you want to visit, one in each plane. So one point in the vertical, 1 point in the horizontal, 1 point in the sagittal. It can go in any order, but something that you can repeat. So coming up with your own little triangular pattern, or maybe, yeah, somehow if you put them together, it's going to be some kind of a triangle. But trying to keep it within the planes. So we're not going into the cube and we're not going into the octahedron. It's going to be a plane into another plane, but with 1 point at a time. So I could go forward low to high right to right forward middle, forward low, high right, right forward middle. Any 3 points. So I'm going to give you a minute to just play around with that, and I'm going to stop talking, but I'm just going to keep moving in space. But just knowing if you're in the horizontal plane or if you're in, I said I was going to stop talking, but of course I'm not. Knowing which plane you're in. And try to switch from one plane to another plane. So that you're constantly going horizontal, vertical, sagittal, or sagittal, horizontal, vertical, or sagittal, vertical, horizontal, anyway. Yeah, just feeling like, and you can play around with making different connections from those places and just see what they feel like. How is it to, you can kind of slice through in the same direction. Or so that you're creating sort of a slice through it, or you can make a big triangle. All right, let's bring it in and see what it was like just to explore that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is floor table plane?
Yeah.
If you're using the floor as your partner, is that the same as, it feels like table plane?
Yeah, the floor, I mean, it is horizontal. Yeah, it's a horizontal plane at a very low level. Yes. So floor, but generally like we'll think of the horizontal plane here, but I could raise it up and it could be here, right? So generally, like if we're going horizontal plane in a human body, it's going to be lined up close to where the arms are. So if you think of like the cross, vertical and horizontal, that's easy. But the floor, you could also be like, that is the horizontal plane. Yeah, I have an image of it somewhere where you see the different levels. And then there's another thing, just to confuse and I have to say, like, none of the theory really matters that much. It's more about exploring different types of movement and shifting around. And then the theory, some of the value of the theory is that it gets your brain working differently to take it in and go, oh, okay, that's this is that. All right. Anything else? What else do you notice? Anything peen?
Yeah, I try to not to think a lot, but I was thinking a lot because but yeah, so I try to not judge myself by sometimes not knowing or not being confused or just move.
I was doing it myself and I was confused. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And to mark it like, oh, I'm in the vertical. Now I'm in the horizontal. Now I'm in the sagittal. Like there had to be, there's a process for that. It's not just like I'm doing movement and it's going to be in those places. Like it'll go somewhere else. If I'm not thinking about it, it'll be in the octahedron or somewhere else. Quentin.
Yeah, my experience sounds, I mean, all three of you said some really interesting things. I felt the ground more after, but it felt like for me, picking up from my last experience, is that the spine expanded. It was almost like branches of the relationship to my limbs, where the spine was reaching out to the relationship to my limbs all over, or like in like a lot of circulation feeling. But also it felt like it feels like all the rumination that I had in my head has gone down into the body. And so I feel calm, but my body feels energized, but my mind doesn't seem as worried with the thoughts. Like I'm much more I'm in my back, but I'm also in my limbs. I'm not really that much in my head at the moment.
Thank you. I think that also for me, that's a big, huge reason to do this stuff, is like it lets your brain, which is incredibly intelligent, do something other than, fixate and spin. So like I can fixate on just this. I can really go in and like, how small is that? I can really just feel that or just the movement. Like, okay, I'm moving. How does it feel? And each time I feel it, if I'm really sensing into my body, it can be feeling very different every time. So I think that that's a huge key to this, is the participatory body-mind experience. Like you're in the thing, exploring it. I wanted to play with the idea also of phrasing. So we talk a lot about phrasing, and if you are a musician, like there's the rhythm, then there's like a long note, there's a quarter note, an eighth note, a 16th note, there's 4 of them, then there's a space, there's a pause. Like how is our rhythm in movement and in humanity, in being a person? And I've had teachers that have very even ways of speaking with very little time involved and very little up and down. And sometimes it's really hard to stay paying attention when the thing is so even keel. It can just knock me right into like a state of meditation that's taken me somewhere else. Even for me, like I've got a ton of time in that, right? So there's different ways that are the phrasing, and that would be my phrasing of effort. Like I have an even phrasing where it doesn't change very much. It just stays along a line. Or I have something that goes up and it crashes and then it comes down and it lilts. And as I'm doing that, I'm also moving. I'm going up with my crash, but that wasn't much of a crash. It was a soft rise, right? So how is the phrasing of movement? Like if I go poof, bop, 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 like, or just as a person, you can see there's a general flow in my arms that are kind of maintaining this sort of watery element in the middle. And then there's like a purpose and drive in my voice with some fluctuation. So we can use music and sound as a way of relating to what we're actually seeing in movement. So if I was like, and in movement analysis, we write about the movement. So sometimes we do this thing for phrasing where we're going like, here's a move, like, and now I'm singing and dancing at the same time because here's my move, right? So go ahead and give yourself a soundtrack to what your movement is, like jigga 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 jig, ha, jigga 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 jig, ha. There's like an impact in my landing, it stops, so it's coming into something. So we can see, is my phrasing getting more expansive and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger? Or is it coming in and getting softer and more soft? It could be getting more and more and more and more soft, more and more and more quiet. So just tuning into what are the dynamics? What are the qualities? And how are they shifting and changing? So a lot of times with movement analysis, we're looking at that, where we see something change. Something caught our eye. And if you go see a dance performance, it's like they're doing something and then something shifts. And we look at that, like we're drawn into change. And that's a survival thing for humans, right? Everything's the same. We don't need to pay attention. Suddenly something's out of order. Boom, better see what that is. So how's that landing for you? Just a thought to take it into more abstract thinking.
I had to think of, I had a conversation with someone, and normally I don't move a lot. My tone is not loud, but then I was getting angry, and she told me like, what are you doing? Or she said it was a good thing that I was like moving my body. Yeah, everything changed by that. I didn't notice myself, but yeah, it was extraordinary for me to move and to raise my voice, and yeah, so that I was silent after that for a while.
Right. So and those like movement preferences and preferences of embodiment are very cultural and familial, right? Like, you know, I had a family that didn't yell at each other. Like nobody screamed, and there was no screaming in my house. And yeah, like very sort of even keel. We're going to just tap it down. Nothing's happening. We don't feel anything here. Like, so it's like, you know, how, and then later on, I had a boyfriend who had a mother that just screamed all the time. And I was like, and he's like, oh, no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Nothing. I'm like, oh my God. Like, so, you know, these different ways of being are going to land completely differently in a different body, right? Depending on what we're accustomed to, what's normal, and what is asked of us within our culture, what is acceptable for us within our culture, and how, and if we start to break out of our typical patterns, how uncomfortable is that for the people around us, right? When we change and shift, sometimes the people that are close to us don't like that. That can, like, generally the holding pattern is to keep us in, except if we're in groups that are in much more learning and growth oriented, which I think like the sort of embodiment somatics worlds tend to be more allowing and expansive, but not always. Sometimes they can be really cutting things off here and there. So just thinking about that is in culture, it's in our behavior, it's in what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. What's the dominant culture and how is the physical expression? And when we shift that a little bit, how comfortable is it for us or for anybody else? Like once we start to add repertoire, possibility to our bodies, it can be very awkward. So there is that. So one reason I feel like when we do it with movement and we're playing with movement, and we're just using space and expansion, then it's less personal. Yeah, I got bigger. Watch this. I'm getting bigger. I'm getting bigger. I'm getting in your face, right? Yeah. Hey. Like, what's that like? When it's play, when we're learning to do it, it's safe. We're not forcing it. You know, we're not making it happen. And I feel like that's like movement play. If we were animals or children, we'd have a fair amount of playing, trying on different roles. If I bite you, are you going to bite me back? What's going to happen? But as adults, how do we deal with that? How do we be in the shifting, changing quality of that? Right. So that's like one of the values of learning different capacities of being, is to go, oh, that's that. All right, Quentin. Nice to see you. Sesame Street, totally. The Sesame Street Dojo. How are we? How are we being people together as we get smaller and smaller in our group? Anything to say about that? Teresa, Teen, Abby?
Yeah, kids get this. I mean, I'm just, getting my kid back into, like, I don't know what she does at school anymore. It's kind of like first grade is this big divide where I'm not in the classroom anymore. And you just line up, and what she can read off kids every day, just in that line, is, I just got a lot from what Laura just said, because sometimes Phoebe will just line up behind the same kid, and just from the way they line up every day, she'll read like, I think they had a tough day today. I think they had a tough time getting out of bed. I think they had a tough time coming to school. I think, she fought with her mommy or something, and she'll read so much off of just how a kid is standing in front of her in line. And we as adults, if we feel like showing up to Laura's Zoom room, we can line up and see how we feel in the Z breath, but we don't have, particularly in a pandemic, like, how do I feel in line for coffee? How do I feel in line for the subway? It's yeah, that really landed for me. And my daughter has been just kind of taking these reads on people, and I almost wish she was here, like, absorbing this, but I think she has. I think a lot of this is very intrinsic for kids.
It is. And also, I mean, that's one thing with the culture of it as well, is like, sometimes we think we know what somebody else is feeling, but actually it's very different than what we think. Like, a lot of times, I remember talking to my mom. I was so stressed out. I think I've told you the story, but I was like so stressed out about what was going on. It was the beginning of pandemic. Me, my mom, my boyfriend are all locked in the house together. It's stressful. And I'm sitting there telling her, I'm feeling so uncomfortable and blah, 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 da, da, da. And I'm thinking she's going to be like, oh yeah, Laura, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk this through. No, she goes, Laura, I'm just eating my dinner. And I was like, oh, this isn't even a thing for her in any way. All the shit that I'm freaking out about, I can freak out a lot less because she's just eating her dinner. We're not going to address this. This stuff is not going to happen. And then another time, Anthony comes to me and he's like, oh my God, Laura, this, that, the other thing, while I'm eating. And I was like, you know what? I'm just eating my dinner. I can't take it all in right now. I'm just here eating. So it's like, sometimes we think that somebody's all caught up in our own drama, or they're having another drama, and it's not even the truth. So I feel like the check-in with people is super important. Like, I'm feeling like, and it's careful not to project the idea of what somebody else is going through. Like, another relationship thing, early in my relationship, my boyfriend would say, you're feeling this. I'm like, you are not allowed to tell me what I'm feeling. I tell you what I'm feeling. But in this thing about feelings, I spent a couple of years doing Meisner acting technique. And in Meisner, you talk about what you're feeling for, like, you're wearing a blue shirt. I'm wearing a blue shirt. You're wearing a blue shirt. I'm wearing a blue shirt. This is getting annoying. Now I don't like you. Blah, blah, blah. I feel hot. Like you have these layers of peeling back. What's the real truth underneath? And I think that, in our culture, I'm fine. What are you talking about? Everything's fine. But no, it's not. You can see it's not. So what our reads are, and what anyone wants to admit to their reading of their emotional state, is, who can say, we just have to be careful when we're in the territory of empathy, because sometimes we're taking on stuff that other people are not in any way, shape, or owning at all. So it's like, and in group dynamics, that's often what happens. There's one person that's the scapegoat, one person's holding the grief, another person's doing this, another person's the boss man. So, and when that shifts, it can be very uncomfortable for people. Anyway, lots of talking, blah, 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 blah.
I'm gonna jump in and say that Meisner technique is interesting. I liked how you were able to acknowledge that you shelved yourself so your mom can have, like, her meal. But yeah, nobody has the right to tell anyone how they feel. So with this pandemic going on, I find that I'm learning how to read body language more because of your classes. Like maybe somebody's saying I'm fine, but there's a grimace on the face, or they're like, I'm fine, and they're looking down. It's like, body's saying something too, not just the words, and taking it all in. So touching on Teresa and your experience.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think a big part of it all is that we don't need to fix anything. And we're not trying to make something better for other people or anything else. Like, not that, yeah, I want the world to be a better place. I want to teach people. I want things to be, great, but I can't take the ownership of any of that, right? I have to not take the responsibility, neither the credit nor the blame. Like, I can offer what I have to offer, but I'm doing it for me as much as for anything else, because to me, it's interesting, right? So I don't know what I'm trying to say here is, and I think it's part of a lot of meditation. Like, are you grasping for something? Are you trying to make something? Are you reaching, or are you just allowing it? And it's a different place. And I feel like when you're in oh, this is what this is. Okay. You can take in the information in a different way. When you have more capacity, it can, you can go, oh, okay. Or feel what's going on for you. Lots of words about nothing. Or lots of words
There's
about.
some things there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, you're muted. There you go. Oh.
To think of the word owning your whatever, and I'm only thinking of that poet Kate Tempest. She has a very beautiful thing about it. I will put it in the group thing, but it's about owning or love your own, or I don't know, but I will send it. But I had to think about, or stand your own, or I don't know. But
Yeah. And I feel like I'm thinking a lot about, like, just with teaching, like, am I trying to teach you love on theory? Am I trying to teach you continuum? Or am I just trying to offer some skills of being in a body and being human? And I think, like, it's really, we can use all this stuff, we can know all these things, but really it's like, how is it landing in me today? What happens if I start to expand my possibilities? How do I come into a relationship with myself in motion, and understand some things about what this means to me, to be in this space for me or for other people or whatever. Cool. Yeah. And I feel like I want to also just be in, like, to be in the learning also, not in it is like this, but learning from each other and being in the space of reality, of creating reality right now, which is this. Yeah.
I feel that you're doing that by asking us also how we are feeling and reflecting. That is like also really communication. So thank you for asking us.
Yeah. It's so much more interesting to me when it's a shared experience and when we're hearing from each person, like, because I feel like the group thing is it's so vital. And I feel like it's the step of what the world needs to do right now, is be able to take in the whole group and be okay with it. So we're not trying to kill other people or, blame them for everything or whatever it is. So yeah, if we can be okay with ourselves, we can really be deeply okay with ourselves, we can deeply be okay with other people that aren't anything like us. Yeah. All right. Well, we have hit an hour and I'm super happy to see you all. Thank you so much for coming. And until next time, or until tomorrow in the play circle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel that my veins are open again as well on the outside. So thank you.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel it too. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.